are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gino, everybody knows from now, as I've said, we've been doing this show together for 4 years. We've talked a lot of college football. We do shows from September to January when the college football season is going. Everybody knows you're an Oregon Ducks fan, and you have been for a very long time. And honestly, for me too, like I've never really said it because I don't have a college team, but growing up, I watched a lot of Oregon Ducks football. I have a Dennis Dixon jersey in my closet that's signed by Jonathan Stewart. I was a big Darren Thomas guy, Marcus Mariota. I was on that bandwagon trying to get Chip Kelly to bring him in. But so you have personal ties to this, and I'm kind of a Ducks guy too. You got to be rooting really hard for Devon Allen, right, to make this roster. The kid, not even a kid, he's 27 years old now as a rookie. This past weekend, he ran the third fastest 110-meter hurdle ever at 12.84. I mean, that speed is incredible. I know he hasn't played football in like 6 years, but there might be a chance that there's something here, right?
I think for once, your jinx outweighed any jinx that I've had in recent memory. When you said that you would take Quez Watkins less than 24 hours prior to Devon Allen.
Because they ran the same 40 time. They both ran 4.34s.
You said that you would rather have Quez Watkins in a race over Devon Allen. Man, can that kid fly. He is a world-class athlete, and the second one that they've had since Marquise Goodwin, who was here a couple years ago. And when you learn what it takes to knock down fractions of a second to get to that level, and how gifted athletically you have to be naturally, and how much time and effort you put in on and off the track, if he has just an ounce of that mindset that he had preparing for the World Championships, preparing for the Olympics, he could really make a career of the return game. And I look back a couple of years ago when Chip Kelly was in San Francisco, and they brought in Jared Hayne, who was a rugby player from New York. They brought him in. He became their returner, and it was primarily because he was lightning fast. Now, Devon played football, for one. He's way faster than Jared Hayne is. He's the third fastest ever in the world at 110-meter hurdles. That's
crazy,
ungodly to even hear out loud. And he blew out the record holder at the time who he was racing against. Hollywood, I think, is his nickname. And I want somebody that can just hit the open field. Guys miss where they're coming at you at an angle, but you can just strangle. They haven't had somebody like that maybe ever in the return game. Going back years now.
It's been since Deshaun Jackson and Darren Sproles.
Yeah.
Kenyon Barner was good in
but
2017.
Deshaun
but
wasn't
since then,
really
Gino,
a big guy
bad.
Deshaun wasn't huge in the kick return game, though. He was more of a punt returner-based returner. They need a full-time guy that could be your fifth or sixth wide receiver, your fifth or sixth cornerback, your fifth or sixth safety option that also can provide you with meaningful snaps in the return game. And yeah, of course I'm rooting for Devon Allen. He was a guy that was there in the midst of a god-awful receiving core for Marcus Mariota for multiple years. His best year came as a freshman where he had 684 yards on 41 receptions, 7 touchdowns, and he had some return ability early on at Oregon. He had 8 kick returns for 209 yards, averaging 26.1. But that came in 2014. It is 2022.
Right, man. It's been
that is a long way from the game.
Yeah,
that's a long. 2016 was this last year, but still, that's 6 years without being on the gridiron.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Eagles, like you said, they've been really bad in the return game since the Super Bowl season in 2017. And I know he's 27. He hasn't played football in a long time. There's been a lot of guys that have that kind of speed, and it doesn't translate to the football field. I use John Ross all the time, but if there's a chance, I mean, it makes sense why they signed him when you have that kind of speed where you're running like the third fastest time ever in track at a certain event. Like, you have to at least kick the tires, just like you had to kick the tires on Jordan Mailata as a rugby star in the 7th round. And that panned out. Not saying Devon Allen's going to be the next top receiver in the league. Like, Mailata is the top left tackle maybe in all of football under the age of 30. Tyree Jackson even switched from quarterback to tight end, and he did a lot last year to make the roster, and I still like his potential. So the Eagles have had long shots that have transitioned from other positions and other sports turn out to have a certain floor of success. So I think it's a long shot for sure, but considering their track record, considering Jalen Reagor has been horrible at kick returning and punt returning, Greg Ward as well, and, you know, the open availability after those top 4 receivers, you know, there's definitely a chance this guy could, I mean, there is a path for him on the bubble.
I think people in Philadelphia specifically think back to the Jeremy Bloom years, if you remember that, the guy who was a slalom skier. And he's actually related to, I think it's called Emily's Game, or it's on Netflix, but it's a movie. And my roommates actually know Jeremy Bloom and the sister, who's like a world-renowned con artist for a little bit in time. And it's a crazy story if you look at Jeremy Bloom's whole family. But going back to it, being a slalom skier is a lot different than running on flat ground. Devon Allen, at least, is a guy who's running on flat ground, and you always wanted to see what it would be like for Usain Bolt to play on a football field, right?
Well, he at least played the sport, right? I mean, Mailata didn't even play the sport. So you at least
100%.
have a guy that was a second overall pick's top receiver in 2014. As you said, he caught 7 touchdowns that year, over 600 yards. And again, like, you got, so the locks at receiver, it's A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, Zach Pascal. That's 4 guys. And then those other 2 spots between Reagor, Greg Ward, Deion Kane had a pretty good OTAs, and Devon Allen, like, he's got a chance. He is in that mix. And Gino, here's an interesting question before we take a break. Better odds to make the roster, Devon Allen or another guy that's switching from receiver to another position, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside? Do you think JJ's still got a better shot? Like, of those 2 that are transitioning from other sports and positions, who's got the better shot?
I'll say this. All right. I do remember the name of the movie. It's Molly's Game. Everybody should check it out.
Gotcha.
It's great.
That does sound familiar. Yeah.
But I would say, I'll put this down as a bet. I won't bet you on does Devon Allen have a better chance. I will say tight end versus tight end converted player from wide receiver. JJ will have a better shot to make the Eagles roster than Devin Funchess, newly signed Detroit Lion, who transferred to tight end, will have to make that roster. I will say, though, Lou, when you are looking at the depths of a depth chart, no pun intended there, you're looking at number 51, 52, 53. What stands out above everything? Your ability to play special teams. JJ was very good on special teams last year. He was very good in all 4 phases. I want you to go back. If you haven't watched the special teams film, nobody's going to actually do that. But he did look good. But what they need and what they're trying to get out of Devon Allen is something that they haven't had. And Jordan Mailata, why he was such a renowned piece to bring in there, is because he was a fresh ball of clay at a position where it's coveted in the NFL left tackle. And you can't find those guys anywhere. Returner, too, man. They have missed on so many guys that returner was their second position.
And it's frustrating, Gino, because they've had so much speed the last few years. Like
Reagor,
between all of the guys, like Reagor, Quez, Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell, you would have thought at least one of these guys could return efficiently, but they just haven't. And so, yeah, I agree, man. There's a path there. I think JJ has a better shot, still based on draft status, based on, you know, his special teams ability and coverage as a gunner. I think Allen should have a better chance, but I think it is JJ. It's funny you mentioned Devin Funchess. Gino, both of my guys in that receiver class of 2019, or at least a couple of them, moved from receiver to tight end. One, it didn't work out for my guy, Hakeem Butler. JJ, we'll see this summer for sure. Yeah, Devin Funchess is doing it too. So a lot of these slow, tall,
new wave, brother,
receivers are trying to make it at receiver.
If you run the 4.6 and you're skinny and you can kind of block, try out tight end.
Try tight end instead of receiver. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. If you liked this video, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Eagles on our YouTube page. Monday through Friday, we have daily podcasts for you in full and short clips just like this. As always, thank you for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds.